You could walk into my grandmother's house, breathe in as deep as you wanted, and smell almost nothing at all. Not lemon, not lavender, not that fake fresh linen smell that comes from a plastic thing plugged into the wall. Just clean air, and maybe something warm drifting out of the kitchen. You'd think she just got lucky, or that old houses simply smelled better back then. But it came down to one thing she did every single day, something almost nobody does anymore, and once you see it, you'll notice it in every home you ever walk into again. So here's what she actually did, and it runs completely opposite to how we handle our homes today. She never covered a smell, not once in her life. To my grandmother, a smell was never just an annoyance to spray over. A smell was information. The kitchen bin that's starting to turn, the towel that didn't dry all the way, the damp corner down in the cellar. Every one of those odors was the house telling her something needed doing, and she listened to it the way you'd listen to a kettle starting to whistle. It was the same thing her own mother had drilled into her, standing at that stove as a girl. Today, we do the exact reverse. We catch a whiff of something off, and we reach for a can and spray a cloud of chemical flowers right over the top of it. The mess underneath is still sitting there. We just told ourselves a little lie about it. My grandmother never told herself that lie. She went and found the source, and she dealt with the thing itself. That one habit is the foundation that everything else in this video is built on. So let's start with the very first thing she did every morning, before the coffee was even poured. She opened the windows. Every day. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this is the one habit modern homes threw away completely, and it costs us more than any of the others. My grandmother would go through the house first thing and open the windows on opposite sides, in the kitchen and across in the parlor, so the air could actually move through the rooms and pull the night right out of them. And while the air was moving, she'd throw the covers back off every bed and leave them open to breathe, so all the damp and warmth a body leaves behind overnight could air out before the bed was ever made. Even in the dead of a cold winter, she'd crack those windows for a few minutes, just long enough to let the stale air roll out and the fresh air roll in. She called it letting the house breathe. Spring and summer, the windows might stay open half the day. In winter, it was a quick, brisk airing while she stirred the fire back up. But it happened every single morning, in every season, without her ever once thinking of it as a chore. Now think about your own home. Shut up tight all day and all night. The windows painted shut or just never touched. The same air going around and around, carrying the same cooking, the same bodies, the same damp from the shower, with nowhere to go. Air that never moves is where every household smell begins. Pull fresh air through those same rooms every morning, and the smells never get a chance to settle in and stack up, so the house ends up smelling like nothing at all. She didn't need a machine or a plug-in to freshen the air. She had 2 open windows and a bit of wind. But fresh air was only half of it, because there was one enemy my grandmother watched for harder than any other, and hardly anybody today even realizes it's the real culprit: damp. That heavy, musty smell we all blame on an old house? Age has nothing to do with it. What you're actually smelling is moisture, and the mildew that quietly grows wherever moisture is allowed to sit. My grandmother was at war with damp her whole life, and she won, because she never let water linger anywhere it shouldn't. The bath towels got hung out flat so they dried all the way through, never balled up on a hook to sour. The kitchen basin got wiped dry after the dishes were done. After a bath, the little window in the washroom got opened so the steam went outside instead of soaking into the walls and the wood. She left the closet doors open a crack so the air could reach the clothes, and on dry days she'd air out the cellar, the one part of the house most likely to hold that heavy, wet smell. She understood something we've mostly forgotten. It's water left sitting somewhere with no air to dry it out. That's the whole recipe for that smell. The one people spend a small fortune trying to spray away, when all they'd really have to do is find the damp corner, the leaky trap under the sink, the towel that never dries, and set it right. Keep the house dry, and you've wiped out the single biggest source of household odor there is. No cedar block or scented sachet even comes close. And that brings me to the walls and the floors themselves, because the very stuff our homes are built and furnished with changed all of this more than folks realize. My grandmother's home was made of honest materials. It was cotton sheets and wool blankets, wood floors and linoleum in the kitchen, plaster walls, and a few good rugs she could pick right up and carry outside. And this is the part that really matters. Natural materials let a smell go. Cotton and wool and wood take on an odor and then release it right back the moment they get fresh air and sunshine. They breathe the same way she wanted the whole house to breathe. Even her stuffing was honest, the horsehair and feathers and cotton batting inside the cushions and the mattress, all of it able to air out on a good day. Now walk through a lot of homes today. Wall-to-wall synthetic carpet across every room, foam cushions packed into the sofa, pressed particle board furniture, plastic laminate, man-made curtains. These materials do the opposite of breathe. They grab hold of an odor and they keep it. That soft synthetic carpet running from one wall to the other is basically a giant sponge sitting under your feet, soaking up every cooking smell, every wet dog afternoon, every spill for years on end. You can't carry it outside. You can't beat it clean over a fence. So it just holds on to all of it, and no amount of powder sprinkled over the top ever pulls it back out. Grandma's home never fought that battle because she didn't bring the sponge into the house in the first place. And that takes us to what she did with everything she could carry outside, which might just be my favorite habit of them all. She gave it to the sun. The clothesline out back wasn't only about drying the wash, it was about freshening it. Cotton sheets pinned up in the open air, snapping in the wind all afternoon, came back inside smelling like nothing at all, which is exactly the point. That famous line-dried freshness people miss so much? It isn't a fragrance at all. It's the smell of a sheet that the sun and the wind scrubbed every last odor out of. And she didn't stop at the laundry. On a good dry day, the mattresses got pulled over to an open window or set out on the porch to air. The wool blankets went over the rail for a few hours. The rugs got carried out to the line and beaten with a paddle until the dust flew, then left in the sun to bake clean. The old folks even had a word for what sunshine did to a set of sheets. They said it sweetened them. Sunlight does real work. It dries out the damp that feeds a musty smell, it fades a stain, and it airs a fabric far deeper than any spray ever reaches. She was using the 2 best deodorizers ever made, and both of them were free, hanging right there in the backyard. We traded all of that away for a dryer sheet and a bottle with a French-sounding name. Now, if you're enjoying this and you want to see these old ways kept alive, do me a kindness and tap that subscribe button. I share these forgotten homekeeping habits every week, the ones that actually worked, the ones nobody teaches anymore. All right, let's step into the one room that could undo a whole day of good work if she ever let it: the kitchen. Cooking is the one time you truly cannot avoid making a strong smell. And my grandmother had a whole quiet routine for keeping tonight's dinner from turning into tomorrow's stink. She cooked with the lids on her pots, so the steam and the grease stayed inside the pot instead of coating the walls and the curtains. She'd crack the kitchen window while she worked, so the strongest of it went straight out into the yard. And after something strong like fish or boiled cabbage, she'd set a little pan of water with a splash of vinegar to simmer on the stove, and it pulled the heavy cooking smell right out of the air. The moment supper was finished, the scraps and the peelings went out to the bin outside. That very evening, never left to sit and turn in a pail under the sink overnight. Then she wiped things down, and the thing that really lingers in a kitchen long after the meal is gone is the grease. That thin, invisible film that cooking throws up onto the stove, the backsplash, the range hood, the top of the cupboards. It settles there, and it slowly goes rancid, and that's the old fryer smell you catch walking into some kitchens. She wiped that grease down while it was still fresh, before it ever had a chance to build up and turn. A clean stove and an emptied bin every single night. That's why her kitchen only ever smelled like the good part, the fresh bread and the coffee, and never like last week's bacon. Now, for the times a smell did manage to take hold somewhere, she had one last trick, and it's the one I still use in my own home every single week. She reached for vinegar and baking soda, never perfume. And there's a real difference between those two ideas, one worth understanding. A store-bought air freshener is just a second, louder smell you're pumping into the room to shout over the first one. Now you've got two smells fighting, and your nose eventually gives up and stops noticing either one. Vinegar and baking soda don't work that way. They actually neutralize the odor. They cancel it right out and leave nothing behind. A little bowl of plain white vinegar left out overnight in a closed-up room would pull a stubborn smell clean out of the air by morning. An open box of baking soda kept the icebox fresh. Baking soda sprinkled over a rug, left to sit a while, then swept or vacuumed back up, carried the odor away with it. A pinch of it went into the shoes by the door, and a good dusting went over the mattress on the day it was stripped, left to sit while the sheets dried on the line, then brushed off before they went back on. A spoonful down the drain and a kettle of hot water kept the sink from ever going sour. Vinegar in the wash, vinegar wiped around the inside of the bin, vinegar on the windows where it left them shining with no film and no smell. And none of it left a scent behind. That was the whole point. She wasn't adding a smell she liked, she was erasing the one she didn't. Two cheap things off the pantry shelf, doing what a whole aisle of expensive sprays only pretends to do. So let's put the whole picture together, because now the real answer comes into focus. Her house never smelled like anything because there was simply nothing left to smell. The air moved through it every morning. The damp never got to sit. The materials let odors go instead of trapping them. Everything that could be carried out got the sun and the wind. The kitchen got shut down clean every night, and the few smells that ever slipped through got neutralized, never covered. Add all of that up day after day, year after year, and you get a home with no smell to hide, and so nothing to hide it with. And here's what I want you to carry out of this video, because it will change how you walk into every house from now on. When you step into a home and a scent reaches out to greet you, even a lovely one, even the nicest candle on the shelf, that scent is almost always doing a job. It's covering for something underneath that nobody ever dealt with. My grandmother's whole generation understood the quiet truth we now sell against every day in the store. Truly clean has no smell at all. It's just fresh air, an open window, and a little honest work done at the right time. So the next time you catch yourself reaching for the spray can, stop for 1 second and do what those women did. Go and find the smell and deal with the thing itself. Your home will thank you for it. And if you want the one evening routine that kept a whole house in order, the habit every housewife did after supper without fail, that's the video I've got waiting for you next.